All right, it is episode 70 of They Talk Funny with Clifford Myers. I got to see Myers. I got to see him bopping his head to the theme song, royalty free music. Gotta love it.
I was totally digging it.
It's sort of like an off-key, funky white boy. That's that is what that sort of describes the show a lot. For those of you tuning in for the very first time, welcome. Say in chat where you're watching from. Say hello to Clifford Myers. My tongue is tied at this point. It's Clifford
You're bringing
Myers.
me back. Saying Clifford Myers, I was one of my very first shows. I was introduced as Clifford Myers by Donnie Coy, if you know the man.
I know the man. I know the
You
man.
know
I know
the man.
legend.
So Clifford Myers,
legend.
you're bringing me back like 12 years now.
I think it was around my fifth or sixth show. I got introduced as he looks a lot like Howdy Doody.
Oh,
they couldn't
great.
remember my name. Yeah, that's. Don't want to mention that person because he knows how to make nuclear bombs.
All right.
There is, and has anger issues. So why are they always the same people? Clifford Myers, it's a pleasure to bring you onto this. This is They Talk Funny, and we're going to be talking about comedy writing, and the past year, and touch on the hopes a bit for the future. How have you been, sir?
Like, it's so funny. I've been really good, like, as much as, like, most people in my circle and anyone that follows along with me knows I've gone through a divorce during quarantine and during COVID. I actually had a divorce right before. It was October 2019, and we were like, okay, we got to figure this out. We're not going to be together anymore. And then the government's like, yo, hold up. Y'all got to still live together. Because of this plague, God sent an 11th one down just for fun. And so we're like, okay. And I had to co-live with my ex-wife for 6 months during the whole experience. And she, funny enough, like, she was actually my first girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I experienced my first breakup at 33, and then the world literally ended. And I'm like, this is what all the emo songs that I like play at anthems in my room were about. Yeah, if she leaves me, my world will crumble, and this is what happened. I'm like, come on.
It's not just my world. It's the entire world.
Everybody. I'm sorry, I did this. Everyone wants to blame the bat suit, but it was my marriage that ruined the world. I truly. But, like, no, and the reason why I say I'm good is because it was such a trial and tribulation, and it was almost like taken away a bit when I saw everyone going through different trials and tribulations at the same time. Not that you want others to suffer, but there is power in knowing others are in the same boat as you.
You're not alone.
And you're not alone, and it helps you to go, like, well, maybe my problems aren't as bad as I'm making them out to be. Right? Like, I still got a bright, wild little kid. He's turning 5. I call him Mowgli because he's a jungle boy. He climbs all over the furniture. Like, I'm his big Baloo dancing bear. He sleeps on my stomach and gets chased by monkeys. Like, this is this kid's life. Right? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this kid, and I'm like, whoa, I did that with my penis. Crazy. Right? Like, I brought this beautiful, magical thing with the thing that makes all the worst decisions. I can't believe this. And this is in my life now. And I got a cat. I've never been a cat person before. I thought, because my mom was allergic, and she's like, my mom's allergic to cats, so obviously I can never have a cat. I don't know. There was just like that thought, if I had a cat, my mom would never visit me. And now that I have a cat, my mom doesn't visit me. But, like, I also live closer. So I visit her, and she makes sure that I'm not covered in cat hair going in. Yes. But there's been a lot of changes, and one of the things, like, I talk to all the time with comics, usually just in back of the room before a show or whatever. Oh, hey Lynn, how's it going? Like what I usually do is like, I talk about like we have to be resilient, right? We have to be comedians are creatures of momentum. We do really well when we're on to the next thing. It's where next show, next thing, next milestone. Let's go. Next crowd. Come on. Right? We're creatures of momentum. So to have our momentum halted really like is going to be like, oh shit, what am I now? Right? Like what the fuck am I if I'm not doing comedy? If I'm not telling jokes, if I'm not chasing the next thing? It's giving me all this time to sit back and just think about, think about my life, think about the world going around me. And the thing that I learned was like things didn't stop being funny. Things got bad, but things kept being funny. Things like there's just like hilarious shit. And I think every comic that's coming out of the woodwork right now, trying to get back on the shows and trying to get out of the funk that they may have been or whatever, even though it was hard, I think we're going to come out brighter, a little bit more enlightened, a little bit more enthusiastic and appreciative to be just touching a mic. Like you're going to be doing comedy tonight.
Yeah.
The end of comedy in front of humans.
It's been it's so wonderful to be back doing that, and
Yeah.
the crowds are so hungry for live comedy, which is such a great thing.
I've always gravitated towards the live energy. I love the wildness of it. Like, everyone's like the one of the funniest things before, during, and after is the policing of comedy. Policing of comedy to me is hilarious because no one's gonna pull it off. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be a more skilled comedian that will figure out a way to tell the joke that you said you can't do, and they'll be the ones to pull it off, not me.
I'm considered because I run a show that has like about a 70% female audience base.
Okay, cool.
And I never say a subject is off limits, but
Yeah.
I'm clear at telling people that how you do it isn't right. Because you know what, the chances are if they do it in front of my audience will tell them they're not doing it right.
Well, think about the C word, right?
Yeah.
It sounds horrible coming from my mouth. It should not leave this mouth because it sounds angry. It sounds wrong. But when you hear from Jim Jeffries, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, what a silly guy.
Yeah.
What a silly guy with this funny little voice. Like you're just like, look at him throwing out that funny word. And like, to me, I'm not going to do it just because it doesn't make sense for who I am. But that's the thing with stand-up. Stand-up gets way more fun when you stop I'm trying to be this, and you just like, oh, this is who I am, and I'm going to embrace that instead. That's a way better choice.
I think the Edgelords have sort of ruined comedy, like ruined provocative comedy, because they're just doing it to provoke rather than doing comedy that says something that provokes.
I have two thoughts on that. First of all, like, to give them a little bit of a trampoline here is the stage is freedom to fail. I've always believed that. But that being said, I think that we need to grow from it, right? If we fail, let's stop failing over and over again and not caring that others are uncomfortable by our constant failure. Like, it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, you learn to listen to the crowd. And that's just the thing I say. Like, any jokes I told from 2009 to 2015, I hate that some of that's on YouTube. I'm just like, I would never write that joke now. I would never tell it that way now or whatever. So growth is one thing, but there are a lot of, like what you describe as edgelords. Yeah, they're the ones that aren't going to grow. They're not trying to be self-aware. They're not challenging their own bullshit, which is so funny. They're challenging everyone else's bullshit. They're like, oh, you're wrong about this, and you're wrong about that. And they're all of a sudden the authorities on comedy. And it's like, make a crowd laugh, and then make a completely different crowd than this crowd laugh. Crazy thought.
I agree with you on a certain point about the freedom of the stage, but when you're being paid, you have to kind of respect the host.
Well, yes and no, right? Like, and like, we can totally have discourse on this, and like, that's what I like about difference of opinion. Yeah. When you're getting paid, I still say you have freedom to fail, but I think it's at a different level, right? Like in terms of like, I have an employer, I kind of know what my ceiling is of who I can joke with and who I can't, what I can say and what I can't say. When I'm doing a club, if I'm being paid by a club, right, I'm most likely not going to be taking as big of risks because I want to get continually paid by this club. Now, if I'm doing a one-nighter, still getting paid, but it's a one-nighter, I'm the headliner or something like that, and I want to try 10 minutes in the middle of a new thing, like new 10 minutes in the middle of my act, I'll probably do it. I wouldn't at the club, but I would at that show. That's just discretion and good judgment, which not all comedians like exercise per se.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think you're more talking about someone not exercising good judgment and ruining it for the host and everyone else.
Yeah. The kind of person that will go and just basically want to pour gasoline on the stage.
And I'm a hosting purist. I'm the opposite of America, that they, like Americans do not value MCs like we do in Canada.
It depends on what area. Like northern U.S., they generally do, but the further south you go, it's tends to be the least experienced person.
Well, I'm just thinking more of the big hubs, like the New Yorks and LAs, because they're so like bullet, bullet, bullet.
Yeah.
Whereas here, like the MC really is that liaison between the crowd and the show, and they really are shaping. There's actually a bit of a craft to it, to that host position. I've always really valued it.
Yeah, I host a lot, and a lot of that is it's like I put myself second. The show has to be first if you're hosting.
Absolutely. And and hosting's not for everyone. Now, definitely for me, I'm a son of a Portuguese woman. My mom is the most hospitable woman you'll ever meet. Zilia, she is a goddess, this woman. And she's just like, you come in, you're immediately family, you're immediately warm. She just has that like spirit. And my mom comes from the Azores. Like she grew up on an island, hunting rabbits with a bow and arrow like Katniss and, killing people to save her district. That's what my mom was doing. And that was, but she comes here and she's such a warm person. I love the hospitality my mom offered total strangers. It was something I always valued. Mm-hmm. And you can do that in comedy. Yeah. And you can do that with hundreds of people at once. And your name's not in lights. The show's about someone else. But hey, those laughs are all of ours, we're sharing that shit. So like, and the way I see it, like I'm a bit of I like comedy for the punk rock aspects of it, the just doing it of it all. And just being able to go up there and be funny, that's usually enough for me. Even if you're not, but that's always the aim, right?
Yeah. Now for those who are watching, because I see there's people beyond Lynn watching this.
Hey, look.
Thank you, Lynn, for tuning in.
Hey, Lynn and beyond Lynn. Wow.
Lynn and beyond Lynn. You are. Would you classify yourself a bit more of a storyteller? I know that you do a lot of crowd work.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a storyteller. Sorry, we're gonna add on to that.
I was just gonna say, would you qualify or quantify your comedic style?
Yeah, so definitely I started off quick jokes, like 30-second bangers, boom, 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 right? Like I used to be like, my mom looks like the penguin from Batman. Anytime I'd be like, yo, mom, like, I'd be like, it doesn't help that she has a Portuguese accent, because I'd be like, yo, mom, what's for dinner? And she'd be like, mwah, right? Like some jokes like that. That's what I was writing when I first started. And then I started really falling in love with crowds. So then I was like, I want to talk to these people. I want to learn who they are. I just started obsessing over the people in the room. I was just riffing one night. I was doing it was like an escape room, like I was doing an escape room in the lobby, and through riffing and crowd work, I found out that the owner of the escape room used to be a prison guard. And that was 20 minutes of material. It just it was fun, right? That you own an escape room now. That's hilarious. And Andy Dufresne's the waiter, and the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
You just have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just silly, right? And the jokes write themselves, and it's just fun. And but then I started living a life worth commenting on, like Pete Holmes would say. And I just started getting some stories that I would find myself telling over and over again. The more I got my chops talking to people. So
Mm-hmm.
through crowd work, I started becoming a better storyteller. And then I took that to strengthen stories and then bring prepared stories to the stage. And so what started off as a crowd work process just taught me how to write stories naturally, like I'm talking, right? And how and where to put in jokes, how to put in jokes, right? Like I do a lot of passive jokes in storytelling, but they're funny and you move forward. Like I don't want to hold on to the laugh for too long. And I
Yeah.
also play with silence differently, right? So I can so this one story, I can't tell it
Great.
anymore.
By the way, that was a great tool for holding the silence. There's this one story, and then sip.
Yeah,
Just it's
yeah,
great when
as
you
I'm
get it.
about to talk about silence.
Just
That's
when
so
you
funny.
get a, it's a great way to get like an audience to kind of just hold. It's great when you get like 200 people, and you can do like a little head cock or do a little something, and they're all riveted and silent for you because they want that next syllable. But
Well, oh, you know what? I love that we're getting so kind of like technical into the craft. So, like, I really want to actually dig into this, and this is a great example.
okay.
So, the story itself is very simple. My ex-wife, she took a pot cookie while I was at a show. She was a Christian background, never took a pot cookie before. She ended up calling the ambulance on herself. I just told you the whole story in 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
There it is. I tell the story 15 minutes on stage, right? And so, like, you have the whole thing already, but I don't reveal to the audience about her calling the ambulance on herself till about 10 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I do that is like, I talk about like I'm on stage and I have to leave the crowd because my phone's blowing up, and I really make it dramatic to the point where I get everyone really quiet and demanding. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I never do this, but I have to leave because my wife, she's in a pot cookie emergency. I don't know what to explain this as, but like I gotta go. And and I called my wife and I felt like a hero, right? Like I was
Mm-hmm.
gallivanting off to save the day, and I was like, honey, I'm coming home and everything is gonna be okay. And then my wife at that moment said, Clifford, everything's okay. I'm in the ambulance now. Right? The reveal, it gets the pop, but you see that silence. I got it with you too, right there, right? Like
Yeah.
that. It's the inflection. It's the fact that I go more cartoony because that's how I like to perform.
Mm-hmm.
I would never say, "Hey, this is how you do it." Anything I'm talking about is not advice. This is just what I like, you
Yeah.
know, and that's how I like to perform. And I like to make jokes that aren't as predictable or kind of weird. Like in that same thing, I have a thing where I talk about I want to talk about how different me and my wife are. And I'm like, we're different in every way. Like we're not even different in size. We're different in every way, shape, and form. She doesn't drink. She doesn't do drugs. Showers in a full bathing suit. Stupid. Stupid joke. But it's unsuspecting. It's completely visual. You get the laugh and then you move on. You do not marry that joke, but you
Yeah.
use it to get you to your next location.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know we were going to get this technical, but like I
Well,
love it.
this is what the show is about. I mean,
Yeah.
we have, I mean, civilians watch, but this is about the craft of comedy.
Awesome, awesome. I love that. I love that like regular people would be interested in hearing about this. That's great to hear. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Uh,
because like they say dissecting the frog's not funny when comedians go and look at all the guts and innards. But like me, I like to play in the guts and innards. I love dissecting the frog. I like throwing it up in the air and I'm like, I'm covered now. Like it's great.
I where to go after frog gizzards have been
You're
tossed.
just picturing me in innards now all over my body.
I'm just trying to not picture myself in them. That's this is
Amazing.
my clean shirt. The
You look spiffy, by the way.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
It's
I
Kenny
mean, for
Robinson.
howdy doody.
Yeah, for howdy doody. It's I've cut the strings. Uh, we've got no you. How can I say this? Uh,
Rudely.
you made it sound like a lot of your writing happens on stage, but
that was how it started.
Okay.
Right? Like that, so like I was writing it, like I've always done this. All my writing is in point form.
We still have Lynn and Stitches though, so that's
Yes,
good.
Lynn is just going nuts over there. I don't know how many edibles she's taken midday, but I trust her. You're rocking it, Lynn. Yeah, so the way the writing process itself, like I started off just writing like jokes in like I just wrote like the words that made me think of the joke.
Right.
Ham, this, blah blah. It may be a note or two.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never trusted the way I wrote it to be the way I would speak it. I felt like I write differently than I speak, and I didn't know how to write like I speak at that point. So, that's why I was having trouble writing comedy, because like I didn't know my voice, and I was like, well, I don't know how to write for me, and so I would just write point form stuff, and then kind of trust myself to figure it out on stage. And then I got riskier as I went on. I would leave myself more wiggle room to practice, and like I would like. Now this is not advice, and I know I've taken risks on club shows where I have done brand new bits off the top of a show emceeing. Like I've done that before, but that's also like not something
fresh and you're excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's not something I would say, hey, go do that. But yeah, you're right. It's an enthusiasm. I couldn't help myself. I was very excited about a new bit. And that's almost some of the most fun times to tell a new bit is when you're really stoked, especially if it flops after. It's like you're so happy for it, and then it just dies in front of you. And you're like, come on. I spent 3 minutes thinking of you. Like, why? And like, but what happens, during the pandemic, I was actually forced to get like a little bit more creative. I was like, well, when I come back, what am I going to do? I'm just going to do divorce jokes. I'm just a divorce guy now. Like, okay, hello 80s. Like, I'm a divorced alcoholic comedian. Like, I'm just a cliche. I understand there's nothing special about me, right? Other than what I bring in my spirit. But when I was in the pandemic, I had to look at these issues. I was like, okay, what's really funny about a divorce during the pandemic? What's actually funny about this? And I was thinking of the co-living, and I was thinking about how rich people divorce and they just divorce. But when poor people divorce, they just keep living together. Right? They just like kind of because they can't do it. I was just thinking of like the economic divide. And then, your mind starts going. And I started like looking, and I was like, man, I'm experiencing my first breakup at 33. Oh my God, that's the age Jesus died. I think what I'm going through is worse. And you really start like exploring these thoughts. And that's where some of that, like those unpopular, weird, unique kind of thoughts are the most fun to talk about to me. Mm-hmm. I like kind of going towards these weird ideas. So the pandemic has actually made me look past some of these jokes and be like, yeah, I don't need to do that joke. I can move on from this. I don't need to do it. It's a year too late. Yeah. And I think it's making me a little bit more timely. A little bit more like wanting to talk about what's happening now. Wanting to talk about my kid dressing up for picture day only to find out it's the next week and then getting punched in the eye the day before picture day. Right? Like, that kind of stuff that I'm just watching happen in my life. I'm like, yeah, that's funny. Right? Like, I have a neighbor that's been actively trying to drown chipmunks and my girlfriend actively trying to stop her from drowning chipmunks. It's funny, but it's weird. And I have to now talk about chipmunk drowning. You're like, don't do the chipmunk jokes.
No. What I'm going is like these are situations that are not relevant to a particular time period or to your age or to anything. These are stories that you can dwell, and if you need to, I mean, you're a pretty prolific writer from everything that I've seen. You churn out a good deal of material. Like,
yeah, and well, I can write in my voice now. So if you read anything I write, even if you're reading something that I do like to write some serious things because I do I have a lot of interest outside of comedy. Mm-hmm. I'm very interested in e-commerce. I'm very interested in gamification and marketing, and like this is all stuff that I don't really apply to myself, but just things I study. And I don't know if this is all comedians, but I just like hungry to learn more and not about the news. I don't give a fuck about the news. I don't want to hear what's on the news. What are you laughing at? Did someone say shit in the chat or something?
It was just Lynn Alex says she's cackling in her office and scaring her neighbors. So
oh, it's a home office. I was thinking like she's working at an office and her neighbors for some reason also work at that office.
Well, it might be her office neighbors. I'm not sure. She didn't specify, but it could be home. She's in Alberta right now, so
Okay.
it's 2 hours earlier. So it's what is it? 4:30 there right now. So 4:30.
Wow, 4:30 and you're on the edibles. Good for you, Lynn.
At work. On top of that,
Yeah, at work while freaking out the neighbors.
now with your writing process, like you discovered how to write in your voice. Are you pen and paper? Are you keyboard, or do you use anything else?
So I do a few things now. So the first thing I do is notepads number one, right on my phone. I'm always tossing shit down, just being like, okay, what's funny about this? What's funny about this? Yada yada yada, right? Let me see. Okay. So like, okay, here's my list right now for like I'm doing an absolute run. So we have to know most of my oh yeah, here's some context. Just some quick context. Most of my material that was written and formed was all marriage material. So I have to get rid of my act. This is just the reality of what's up. So I'm going into those first shows in Kingston, not really having an act, but knowing how to do this. Right. So like so I have these ideas and I will start here. And so it says like hugged drunk guy at beach. Okay. Context behind that. I helped a drunk guy try to look for his keys for 2 hours during the pandemic. And it was this like weird experience where a drunk man held me and I thought he was the last human on earth. And you know, and like the way he made me feel in this weird situation where we're not allowed to be near people, there was something really cool about this drunk guy. So I know that like because that's a concept I really like, I want to go and make that funny, right? And that tends to be like, what do I want to talk about that I just like something that really like piqued my interest, and then I go for it from there. And so like I have da, 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 let me see here. Oh, okay, cool. So it says the like my son's potty training, right? And like he's been watching a lot of Moana, but he can go in the toilet and everything. But he bends over to get wiped, and he holds his ankles like he's in prison, right? Like Folsom style, hold the ankles, bends over, and he's singing Moana to me like "You're welcome," shaking his dirty ass in my face and shit. And so like I'm like I want to talk about that parenting experience because like you know like how many people on your social media accounts or your Facebook or your friends or your family are just talking about all of the drama bullshit that everyone else is talking about? And like, if you go to a comedy show, you are there to escape. And if everything's just talking about the pandemic, if everything is just talking about like the hard things, you know, like, yes, I want us to joke about the hard things, but I also want us to look the other way a little bit. Yeah. Just for these couple hours. Let's just all look over here.
Comedy as escapism.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be. But like we've always gone to this. Like even when I visit my mom, we're all in the living room telling each other stories. Like this is how we entertain each other. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's something like people pass on. It's one of the most human things a person can do. And and the more like, you know, during the pandemic, I took on a corporate job and which like I work from home and that kind of thing. And the more I'm around corporate types, the more I realize the distance that they have from humanity, because like you learn to talk in a certain speak. Mm-hmm. It's weird. Where I'm like showing up to Zoom meetings, I got a broken heart tattooed on my ring finger. I'm just socially unacceptable, you know. Like everyone's just like, it just make people feel weird. I like that though.
Yeah. No, there's definitely being true on stage is not something that's socially acceptable. Like to other situations, you can't walk into a Walmart and say, "Hey, how are you today?" unless you're the greeter. You can't.
Yeah.
You know, people don't talk to strangers anymore, and the job of the
Yeah.
comedian is to sort of fulfill that need for the people who are going to the comedy show, especially the host. You know, they need to somebody to talk to them.
See, and I guess I haven't thought about what comedy really means now because I haven't done it yet, right?
Mm.
Like I'm seeing a lot of friends getting back on stage. I'm in a small town. My opportunities are less until I go on a club run.
Yeah.
So like which is fine. That's just the way it is right now. That's another thing. A lot of acceptance you're going to hear coming from my mouth right now. I just like very much like, okay, that's the way it is now. Because I just can't keep getting surprised by bad shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so sorry, go back to your question so I make sure I answer it right.
I don't think there was a full question in there. It was just the fact that I wanted to say, you know, the fact that you are open, which makes the corporate people you speak with uncomfortable, is also one of the things that you developed and honed as a comedian, as to
Yeah.
get on stage with.
It's weird, right? Because when like okay, take a marketer. Marketers are talking about how to market to people,
Yeah,
right? So
but they
I'm a
don't even view them
comedian.
as people.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm a comedian. I've seen people. I've been with people. And like I look at some of these marketers, I'm like, when's the last time you've been around real people? Like people not with white walls and people that have bed sheets for like drapes, you know? like a real human. Like when's the last time? And like I kind of like I do think probably one of the biggest issues in the world is class divide. I don't have a solution for that. I am not smart, but like I see those issues being more pressing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, like, in terms of being open though, I do think it's a benefit in a corporate environment as well because then you can be the voice of people, right? You can be like, you know, no, people are looking for this. This is what they want solved. And that's
Mm.
essentially what marketers are trying to solve people's problems, right? Like that's what they're trying to do. And they're trying to do it in like a flashy way.
Yeah.
Where like comedians, we're like frontliners. We get in the muck with the crowd. We're there with them.
Mm.
We're with them on the ground, right? Like it was like, and if some of the crazy memory happens that night, everyone in the room was like, "Oh, I was there that night," right? Like
Yeah.
I like. Here's a good example: Brantford, Ontario, a few years back, comedian on stage with his seeing eye dog.
Mm-hmm.
That seeing eye dog took a giant shit in front of 300 people. And then I had to run on stage and while the producer cleaned the shit. He told me I had to stall, but I was crying, laughing so hard at how horrible it smelled under the hot lights. And I couldn't stop describing it. And like it was horrible. And he's got like a whole janitor's card out. And the whole room became pandemonium. Everyone was just like losing their shit. Well, because the dog lost his shit, and we're all like going nuts. And like anyone that was there that night, like yeah, we tell the story, you could laugh, but like to be there that night, like yeah, I was there the night the dog shit on stage, and it's just something you get to have. And those things, like I just think, are a little more important, you know?
Yeah. No. I'm just a quick. I'm looking for a quick answer. What do you think about people filming? Like the people who are spending the time looking at their phone while they're filming a comedian or filming any kind of life event. Do you
I'm
think
not a
they're
fan
missing
of
it?
it. Yeah,
Hmm?
like I'm not a fan of it. Like to me, like yeah, it takes you're taking yourself out of the moment. But like, there's a lot of things people do that disservice themselves. And as much as yes, it is a slight to me. I wish you weren't recording me. That's kind of shitty. You're doing a slight to yourself too, because you're just not being alive in a good way. Like just like put your phone down and laugh. You're gonna have a good time.
Enjoy the moment.
You're going to be okay. If you put the phone down, it'll all be okay.
We're eating up time a lot. We've only got about 15 minutes left. I I want to ask you, like, what did the past like year and a half mean to you? I mean, I know you went through the divorce, you went through the co-parenting, the while still cohabiting. You lived in the basement, she lived upstairs, so you luckily had a large enough place.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like I was in the basement. I was very much treating it like prison, putting chalk lines on the wall, and like I was default to wallow. I was very much feeling sorry for myself. I didn't know how to talk to people. I There's two things that were a part of my identity: being a husband and being a comedian, and both of those were gone at the same time, right? And so like it was tough because I'm looking at myself and I'm like, well, who the hell am I if I'm not those people? And it's really scary for me to say, well, you're Clifford, because I can't fully tell you what that is. But if I'm listening to myself, I know who that is. I know who Clifford is. And this is him. You've been talking to him the whole time. And Clifford started being like, okay, you got to be Clifford again. You got to realign with yourself. To say that, oh, the marriage ended and it was just one side, that's completely bullshit, right? Like I definitely contributed to my wife leaving and not communicating well enough and stuff like that. And I'm now facing that, and facing that made me face myself as a comedian, and it only made me more grateful to do it. I feel less likely to give a shit about clout or who's getting what, all this petty stuff that we get caught up in. Oh, they got that festival. They've only been in it half the time as me.
mm.
Right? Well, whatever. Yeah, they got it. Move the fuck on. Like this is I'm so cliche. LSD changed my mind on all of this. I dropped LSD for the first time this year, and it was actually a very transformative experience.
Did you at least try mushrooms first, or did you
Oh yeah,
just
I've been
make
doing
the big
mushrooms
leap?
for
Okay,
years.
all right.
Yeah, I love mushrooms. Do you know Jason Allen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I once spent an entire morning at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning wandering Hamilton on like 5 grams of mushrooms each. It's just like we ended up at like a punk rock flea market and eating like eggs Benedict in some hole. It was great. Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to try LSD, and it was cool, and then it was sad, and then it was funny, and then it was like, oh, I started like facing some of these things I've been thinking about the whole time, and I came out of it like being like, so I did my job this past year. My job this past year was to be an awesome dad, and I hit it real hard. And I got promotions at work. I did that for my kid. And like anyone that knows Cliff, promotion guy, no. But what happened? I got 9 rejections in a row. 9 internal, just getting rejected. I can talk in front of hundreds of people. 2 people in an interview with an expectation of me, fucking buckle. I didn't know how to even be myself in an interview. So like after those 9 rejections, well then I got in an 8 month period 3 promotions, right? And I
Mm.
got those promotions for my kid, but I also got those rejections for my kid. Like I'm starting to learn that everything I'm doing is for this guy. So no, I'm not going to ever leave comedy because it gives me so much joy and I want to do it forever. So I'm going to keep doing comedy, but I'm not going to leave my job for comedy because I want my kid to have good groceries. And that's where I'm at. You know what I mean? It's just like, and that means maybe I won't have a Netflix deal, and maybe I won't ever do JFL, but I think I'll make some crowds laugh, and I'll get to be with my son and be a present dad. And I don't know, it just sounds like a big win.
All right. Now we'll get a little bit onto the more dangerous ground. There's been a lot of changes in the world. I know that you said that you don't like to watch the news.
Mm-hmm.
In the past year, with the transition of power in the United States, with social issues coming to the fore, such as the Black Lives Matter movement, all of these things, and here in Canada, sort of like I was getting slapped in the realization we knew that the residential schools were bad. Now finding out how bad. I
Yeah,
mean, that's other people's children. That's
yeah.
Um, do you think that any of these developments have been good? Do you think that any of them are going to foster any permanent change?
Yes. I definitely think so. I'm not sure how much Survivor or Big Brother you watch.
Neither, actually.
Okay.
I prefer scripted stuff.
I know every podcaster asks me not to bring these up, but because I'm very
I
much
didn't get the memo. I didn't get the memo. All right.
obsessed with reality TV. But here's the thing, and this is the truth. If you look at the Big Brother casting, Big Brother's been on 23 seasons. They typically would cast a single black person in a cast of mostly white people. There's never been a black winner. There's been winners that were persons of color, right? But there was never a black winner in the United States, history of the show. This year, for the first time, there was a systemic change in like how they were actually casting, and they casted a diverse cast, multiple LGBTQ, multiple people of color, and then an alliance formed called the Cookout of 6 black contestants, and they made it to the final 6 together, and they guaranteed that no matter what, we now have a black winner in the history of Big Brother. I think people in every industry are doing that now. I think people are doing that across the board, that they're making new history. I think that's what's happening. And I don't think new history is anything to be scared of.
Yeah.
I think like it's very exciting to be a part of and to see these things happen. So like I'm really enjoying watching Big Brother. I've been really enjoying this new diverse cast and Survivor. And it's honestly, from a parental standpoint, I'd rather raise my kid now than when I was raised. Like my little kid looks up to Elsa, right? Like he's looking up to badass princesses. Like he's not like me where I have to like duck from a GM worker coming home and like don't talk to him for an hour. We're different times, and my kid gets to have that. Like he just gets to have that, and I think that's a better life for him.
A couple of comments have come in. Lynn Alex is saying Big Brother 23 finales tomorrow, so congrats to X.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, but what are you going to do if Aza wins that final HOH? She's voting out X. Lynn, your heart's going to be broken, and that cat will be your face. That's what's going to happen. Okay, Lynn?
She's saying cheers to the mission. Cheers to the mission.
Cheers. Yeah, absolutely cheers to the mission. And that's I support that 100%. Why wouldn't you?
Now, there was also in the past year has been the loss of so many shows. You mentioned that you took up the day job.
Yeah.
Oh, and sorry, Lynn Alex just wants to confirm that she said she's taking X.
No, so. She's got your. Stop the podcast. Stop. No, if she takes X, that is the dumbest move in history. Sorry, we'll move on from Big Brother.
So, reality shows are it could be she could be lying for votes, or she could be never mind.
Comics are always talking about baseball around me. I can talk about my reality shows around y'all.
I'll talk comic books around you. I won't talk baseball or reality TV show or a good sci-fi series. Now you had the loss of work. Did you prefer the live audience? So I imagine you did very few of the online type shows.
I tried it. Listen, I tried.
I'm in the same boat. I did a few. It's just without that audience energy, like without being able to interact.
Yeah,
I felt felt like it was so difficult.
I like this. This I like doing. I think it's great for podcast formats, but not for comedy. It's got to be a live show.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was just, and I know I was watching you guys hustle it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was like, they're hustling so hard. I'm like, I can't really. I'm gonna go buy a green screen. That's not why I signed up for this. I'm not a YouTuber.
That's an old bed sheet, actually.
Amazing. Yeah, like that's just not. Yeah, I can't do it.
All right, Lynn's not letting it go. She's saying she's a terrible player. You did great on Zoom, Paul. That bad joke killed me. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
Well,
I think
that bad joke killed you. That bad soup killed a lot more.
Yeah. There it is. Well, the thing is, they did a hybrid show for the Calgary Funny Fest. What is it? Stu Hughes show, the festival that he runs every year out in Alberta. And so he did a hybrid show. So half the acts were zooming in. There was a camera on a live audience as well as a virtual audience. And so I got to sort of interact a little bit with the crowd, like I could point to people,
Oh,
but I zoomed, and then half the comics were also there live. So
oh, weird.
yeah, it was a neat kind of thing. There's a couple people that are coming out doing these hybrid shows,
I was
which
confused when you said hybrid shows. I was like, oh, like half vaccinated, half unvaxxed, like half in the rain and half inside.
I did those shows in Germany. Those are kind of funny. The dry area gets a little bit crowded after a bit.
Jesus.
But yeah, I think there was sort of a people felt the need that they needed to do comedy and they needed to watch comedy, and I think the Zoom shows sort of filled that. But now that clubs are opening up again, you're going to be doing your absolute run.
Yeah, I'm
Do
very
you
much. Next week is when I'm in the Kingston, and it's like every other week. So then, like, not the week after, then I'm in Toronto and then Ottawa.
are you
So
are you doing 2 weeks in a row in Ottawa?
no, I'm going to be doing one each because I did it the opposite of my parenting schedule. I told
Right.
you, man,
Okay.
I'm prioritizing both. And
Yeah.
like, there's so many people. I'm going to gripe about this. I know you want to leave as soon as possible, but listen, I'm going to gripe about this real quick. Is like when we were pregnant, you know, and like we are starting to have a kid. So many comics were like, "Say goodbye to comedy."
Yeah.
Oh, you're done. It's done. You're not going to hustle as much. Blah 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 blah. I just want to say to all of them, fucking eat it. It's been like a wild time, and this kid only makes me want to do more comedy.
Yeah.
That's bad advice. Don't shit on people's dreams. Like it's not nice to do that.
What? All right. Let's. What are your hopes for the future? Like with the social change, with the clubs opening up, do you think the crowds are going to be back? Because you haven't done a live show yet.
Oh no, I'm like I listen. I don't know what's going to be happening with these vax passports and stuff. That all that stuff is weird and divisive, you know. And like, so I don't know what that means for live venues. And I don't know what the capacity means with like less capacity and stuff.
Yeah.
But what I can think is going to happen, and this is just a prediction, is I do think we're in for an artistic resurgence. It always happens after a shared plight. You know, like
Yeah.
historically, it always happens. So I do think we're actually in for another roaring 20s. Like, I think that's what we're about to be in for. I think you're going to see a lot of music, a lot of comedy, a lot of creation. And I think just like a lot of people doing both, being hybrids, trying other things. You're going to just see like more risk taking and more. And because we can connect to each other in a way we never could before, that art's going to be look different than it ever did before. So I think that's what we're in for. I do, but I still think it's going to be more hardships and division along the way because just seems to be the way of the world at the moment.
That sounds like very wise words. Yeah, it's just to let you know or avail any fears in Montreal. The vax passports are kind of working out. Just think
Okay.
about when your kid went to school for the first time and you had to have the MMR like shot.
Yeah, that little card kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
basically it's the same thing. It's just now people want to fake it, and that's just the way it is. That's why they have the extra security on it to make sure that people aren't faking going in because they're putting themselves and other people at risk.
Yeah, I really do hope for some sort of economic support to these businesses. I'm in a small
Yeah,
town and I watched half a town shut down,
yeah.
like boarded up shops. You know what I mean? And like people couldn't handle it because
In
the rent
there were
prices that
Yeah, there were some national programs, and there was also I know in Montreal here there was also municipal and provincial programs as well for
yeah.
businesses. A lot
I
of
I know in
assistance.
my town we are like there's a bunch of national resources, but like so I've been sharing these because like I work with a lot of online merchants and stuff like
Yeah,
that, like in my day job. So it's like it's almost like I had a front row seat to the economy because I was like talking to all these merchants that were losing their jobs and like being like, well, I'm going to start my own business. And, you know, that's what they're calling it now, the Great Resignation. It's not just like the business owners that had to shut down because they couldn't afford the rent or, you know, had nowhere to store their product or whatever because a warehouse shut down or something. But like a lot of people that lost their jobs or weren't deemed essential, they're like, well, I'm essential to my family. I'm essential as a provider in this house. I'm essential to my kids. I'm essential. You know what I mean? I'm essential to my circle. So it's like, what do you mean? I'm not essential. And they're like, well, I'm going to make myself essential and create my own job. So I think that's another thing we're going to see is not only a boom in art, like a boom in entrepreneurialism. I think like literally more people are going to bank on themselves and bank on others because, hey, someone might make a bad soup and ruin everything. You know,
and here's banking on you, Clifford. Clifford Myers. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I can't believe that we haven't crossed paths in this country prior, but
yeah, it's definitely weird. I do want to come out to Montreal. I haven't had you know, I've been so busy.
the soap is exactly. Travel's been a little weird right now. Lynn is saying thanks for another great show. Thank you, Lynn, for tuning in. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in. If anyone wants to support the channel, I'm just gonna put this up here. This is the link tree / Paul Ash. So it's linktr.ee / Paul Ash. That's a link to all the shows I do. I do a lot of panel shows like this. Last night, Mark Hamill actually retweeted my BattleCom, the geek comedy battle show that I did.
Awesome!
So he did it in a threatening way. So, but I'm pretty happy all the same. And I want to. It's sorry. It's the. I should have probably put this in a little bit earlier because I wasn't that smart. Let me just bring that up. Right here, it's the Clifford and his blog Tumblr account. Is that the most current, or what would you recommend for people who want to follow you?
I would just go to my website, cliffordmyers.com.
cliffordmyers.com.
I am going to be using that blog just for fun and talk about some fun show stories and whatnot. But I also have a professional blog that I do on my LinkedIn called Goldfish Brain, where I talk about being an outlier in a corporate environment. And so that's like something I'm doing too, because you can do all things, Paul. Just do the things.
Let's do the things. Let's do all the things. Let's bring laughter to people. I'm Paul Ash. My guest is Clifford Myers. This has